Welcome to another film review of The Mental Traveler. I'm Caro and I'll be talking about a film that I've loved for more than 15 years, The Last Unicorn. It's about an hour and a half long. The movie is a little bit different from the book. They just mainly cut out a lot of the characters' background storylines. It can still stand up on its own and be a good product. And 5 amazing actors lend their voices to the characters of this animated film, like Mia Farrow, Jeff Bridges, Alan Arkin, Angela Lansbury, and Christopher Lee. I grew up watching this movie, and now in retrospective, I think that The Last Unicorn, it's more of a adult fairy tale rather than just your common children's story, even though the novel is way darker than the movie. There's this forest where it's always spring, and the reason for it is because the last unicorn in the world lives there. But then one day she learns that she's the last unicorn, and she's really surprised by this. Then she learns that this monster called the Red Bull is responsible in a way for the disappearance of the other unicorns. So the protagonist, who is a female, decides to abandon her forest and go out into the world in search for answers. But then she's captured by this evil witch called Mommy Fortuna, who runs a traveling show. But then the unicorn is set free thanks to the help of this young, naive, wannabe magician called Schmendrick. And by this point the unicorn has learned that there's this monarch called King Haggard, and he is connected in some way to the Red Bull. So the unicorn decides to go searching for King Haggard's castle, and Schmendrick the magician follows her. So they become these sort of traveling companions and start on these adventures. They meet Robin Hood and Lady Marian, Friar Tuck, and all the merry men. They also meet this woman called Molly Group, and she ends up going with the unicorn and Schmendrick over to King Haggard's castle. But before these 3 companions can arrive at the castle, as soon as the unicorn sets foot on King Haggard's lands, the Red Bull senses her presence, so he starts chasing her, and Schmendrick tries to save the unicorn by changing her into a human girl, which succeeds. But now that the unicorn is a woman, it's kind of disconcerting because she fears she'll lose her identity. She feels like she's in a prison, being trapped in a human form that's dying with every second. But in the end, she agrees that her best hope for finding the answers she is seeking about the whereabouts of the other unicorns is by going to King Haggard's castle dressed as a girl, not as a unicorn. And then when she arrives at the castle, she encounters way more than she expected. King Haggard's son, Prince Lear, ends up falling in love with her, and then the unicorn reaches this point where she doesn't know if she should even want to go back into being a unicorn, or if she should allow herself the chance of loving someone and marrying Prince Lear. And I don't want to tell you how the story ends, but it's really an original plot. I give it a 5 out of 5 star review because this isn't just a typical animated movie. And then I also like the fact that if you take out all the magical elements of the story, you still get all these lessons that apply for real life and that are very grown up and not at all for a children's story. And in a more technical aspect, I want to mention that the actors who were cast to lend their voices to the characters in the film were very well chosen. For example, Mia Farrow voices the unicorn, and in her voice you can hear this sort of fragile and soft tones that really work to give this mythical element to the unicorn. The great Christopher Lee voiced King Haggard. By the way, I must say, because Christopher Lee was such an inspiration that I want to mention that The Last Unicorn was one of his favorite books, and he didn't only voice King Haggard in English but also in German. I think I would like for The Last Unicorn to be adapted into a movie with real people in it. Unfortunately, Christopher Lee can no longer play King Haggard, but I believe that Emilia Clarke, who plays Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones, would be a perfect Lady Amalthea. And another thing that I really enjoyed from the movie are the landscapes shown in it. I think that's one of the main things that captured my imagination through the years. Similar things have happened with me with movies like The Neverending Story and Labyrinth. Growing up and watching all these beautiful fantasy landscapes really inspired me and make me want to write fantasy. In the description box you can find the IMDb page to The Last Unicorn. Since the movie is here on YouTube, I decided to put the link as well for the movie if any of you guys want to watch it. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and if you like The Last Unicorn, whether it's the book or the movie, let me know. See you next time.